Kia ora guys and welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max, I'm the host over here at this channel, and a big thank you to my patrons. As you guys can probably tell, we're discussing the Irish win over Scotland, which was not very good on Gregor Townsend's CV. Scotland may be looking at a fair few changes for themselves going forward, as this is now 2 World Cups where they have been knocked out at the pool stage. Bring back the Scotland of old, I say, and well done to Ireland, I also say. I do just want to thank you guys as well for heading over to Rumble and over at Odyssey before we start this video. A few of you guys have been heading over there to see analysis videos I made in week 1 and week 2 of the World Cup, as a few creators, including myself, have had a few copyright strike issues, including Wayne Barnes, the referee himself. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's just ask the question about how Ireland took this magnificent win to top the pool. Well guys, we're going to find out. So let's get into this. The scariest thing for us All Blacks fans ahead of next week right now should be that Ireland was set to score their opening try just 52 seconds into the test. There's at least 10 videos where I've shown this animation on screen to you guys. It demonstrates the use of a distributor hiding behind a 3-man pod to relieve the pressure of an opposition defence. This very same pattern that Ireland first adopted about 18 months ago is being used in this match to set up the opening try. The Irish, however, are putting their own little twist on it through the usage of the decoy runners. For those who are new to rugby, decoy runners are attacking players who are looking to run forward towards a defence line so that possible tacklers have a harder time marking the player who scores a try, as this animation also shows us. Now that we cut back to the test match, we can very clearly see Ireland using a 2-3-2-1 pod structure, and we identify the 3-man pod with the 2-man pod on the outside, while Sheehan is all the way out here as a single-man pod on his own. The other two forwards, well, I mean, they're obviously in the breakdown. This now allows for us to see a hands down the line axis with Johnny Sexton as the distributor hiding behind Ireland's forwards so that he can choose which ball carrier will advance forward. We'll cut to 54 seconds on the clock though. This new freeze frame shows us that while the blue axis remains, the decoy runners haven't began to advance until Sexton has the ball himself. Mac Hansen is also following this animation to loop around and become the potential recipient of a pass. All three of Sexton's options could themselves send this ball further on to Hansen and Lowe, while with Sheehan out wide to clean out, there's a 50-50 chance for the animation I showed you guys at the start of the video that we've got back on the screen being a total bluff from Ireland. Sexton does indeed pass the ball to Ringrose, as we'll see 2 seconds later, but because it's Grant Gilchrist, a tight 5 forward, who has read the Irish attack correctly, he's simply too heavy to turn around from a side-on position to make the tackle. Byrne has obviously blocked Fagerson too, though this isn't ruled by the referee as an obstruction since Gilchrist is still marking Ringrose. We can now see a hole between Fagerson and Gilchrist open so that Ringrose can run off to get his potatoes at the Nessie's Lake restaurant. After Ringrose passes the ball to Hansen, who is now looped around, Kinghorn has to choose between 2 defensive lines as the white arrows show us. With Scotland outnumbered in a 2-on-1, Lowe is over for the opening try. Scotland do their best to get some points on the board, but they are still scoreless by the 26th minute, and this allows for the Irish to strike again. Now, if you showed me this freeze frame alone, asking for my opinion on the Irish attack shape, I would probably just tell you that the attack was simply bad. As we've now identified the players by name and seen who is where though, we see why this is bad. 9 Irish players are in a simple hands down the line formation that you play with at age 13, while we can clearly identify which Scottish player is marking which Irish player. Kinghorn can of course come from out the back and fill in the defensive line too. The blue axis, as it did for the previous freeze frame, remains with Ireland on 25-17. However, what they're really trying to do is shift the hands down the line across as far as they can to artificially create an overlap on the red circle around the touch judge. The famous Sexton loop that I've gone into detail with this video over here is the plan for Ireland, as Sexton wants for Ringrose to join him on the outside of Doris so that Scotland's defence line gets adjusted for Tui Peloshu to mark Sexton and Jones to mark Ringrose, leaving Graham to pick between the 3 white arrows on defence and force Kinghorn out of the backfield. And since copyright won't let me show you guys, as I've probably said at the start of the video, this attack structure eventually allows for Keenan to break the line and score the try. While Ian Henderson's try for Ireland is a short-range effort that we probably can't read into too much, Hugo Keenan goes over for the double, so we'll have a look at that one before we discuss the halftime stats. Should my prediction about Ireland playing against France in the final come through, This play here will work very well against the brick wall France defence. We can see in the 39th minute that while Sheehan is headed into the tackle of Dempsey and Tui Paloshu, that Byrne, Furlong and Sexton, all in the black and white circle, are coming towards the width of the pitch. This momentum means that while Gibson Park lines up his pass a few seconds later, the three of them are all still moving towards the open side. Van der Fleer also chimes in to become a ruck clearance option and binds to Byrne, as the animation shows us, while sending Furlong between the shoulders of Rory Darge and Matt Fagerson is also a possible option. Once again, I can't show you guys the full motion, but we'll cut to 38:36 to try and use an animation to demonstrate Furlong using his momentum to travel further to the open side. He gets up in Van der Merwe's face so that Aki and Keenan have the time to wrap around further to Sexton's outside to create this obvious hands down the line. The wide shot now presents us with this gap between Van der Merwe and Smith, who had an absolute horror show of a performance. Smith marks nobody as Keenan takes the pass to go over and score a try. Goodbye ad break and hello halftime stats. Ireland are ahead by 26-0, courtesy of 4 tries and 3 conversions by Johnny Sexton. The tries, of course, going to Keenan, Henderson and Lowe. And Scotland, however, we can see them genuinely putting up a bit of a fight in these stats. They have a slight advantage for possession there and territory, and when we get to the running stats, things look pretty even if you ask me. Scotland are only about 48 metres behind Ireland in terms of metres run. They've beaten more defenders, but Ireland, with 3 clean breaks compared to Scotland getting none, are clearly manufacturing things more. They are far more planning in their attack. Scotland, on the other hand, just flinging the ball around, passing it as much as they can, leading in passes and offloads, but without any structure, hoping that the Irish are just going to randomly miss tackles. That just doesn't cut it in international rugby at all. And if you can't do it at the Six Nations, well, it can't happen at a World Cup. Ireland as well, getting 3 turnovers compared to 1 for Scotland. Their cover defence was really coming in clutch for them again, getting them a fair share of the possession they had. So if not for that Irish cover defence, maybe Scotland could have had, a few more opportunities. The tackle success, though, very good for both teams. So Scotland with an 87% rate, Ireland with an 88% rate. It just shows you once again that Ireland, with that structure, they can break down any defence, no matter how accurate it is, because the attacking Ireland doesn't matter how accurate you are as a tackler. What matters is your ability to structure and read what they've done, do your analysis and everything. The ruck success as well. Teams who are winning test matches are normally far ahead in this category, and it's the same for Ireland over there, so not ideal for Scotland at all. Ireland did manage to steal 2 lineouts as well, which definitely helped. Very clean at the set piece, but the penalties, with Ireland giving 2 away inside their own half during that period of the Scottish dominance between the kind of 4th and 25th minute or so, that was when Scotland had all those attacking chances. They did not take the 3 on either occasion. It could have allowed for them to be ahead of Ireland by 6-5, courtesy of the early missed goal by Sexton, but by not taking that chance, their heads just went down straight away when Ireland got a second try, and that heads down momentum of Scotland was something they didn't recover from, as we're about to find out in the second half. Now that we begin our analysis of the second half, we can see that it opens up with the same pattern as the start of the first half. Van der Fleer wants to pass to Sexton, Furlong and Byrne can shoot up into the faces of the Scottish, which now sees us head to 43:01, where Smith's yellow card opens up a huge hole for Gibson Park, who has moved to the wing. I'll remind you guys of the decoy runner's animation I displayed in the first half, so that as we take notice of the runners relieving pressure from their outside options, we can see the same from 43:15 on the clock. We've got Ringrose, who is standing in at first receiver with Sexton out the back. Well, since McCloskey is 6'4" and 110 kgs, it's not impossible for him to help Doris clean the ruck as they're in a pod together. They can obviously follow the same animation to crash the ball up themselves. Because McCloskey is a decent distributor, it's also possible for O'Mahony to celebrate his 100th test with a carry alongside Henderson, while Aki is in a position to take a pass from Sexton if the ball goes out the back and over to the open side. What we haven't noticed in this frame, though, is Gibson Park. I'm going to cut back to 43:12, so we see him getting up from the breakdown on the wing, with Murray in at 9, so that when we get back to 43:15, we can see him floating around, trying to be a bald version of Dami and Penno. Well, now move forward to 43-19 to establish how Sexton's pass to Keenan, having indeed gone out the back, has now given the chance for the best passer in the Irish team to get on the outside and loop around, with Aki and O'Mahony making room for him to enable the finish. As Gibson, Park and Aki on his outside engage the defence line, we can now see the gaping hole created by the yellow card that allows for Dan Sheehan to finish in the corner. Even with 15 players on the pitch though, Scotland's badly defend that right wing again. After Sexton comes off in the 45th minute, it was pretty good to see Jack Crowley getting a bit of game time, while we can see Ringrose over here on the wing. The Scottish defensive lines are pretty obvious. We'll use the black arrows this time to show that Turner is marking Crowley, Russell is marking Van der Fleer, Dempsey is marking Kilcoyne, while Horn, who has moved to wing with Graham off, is doing the job against Aki. Ollie Smith, however, seems to think a chip kick with forwards on Crowley's outside is more of a risk than the gaping hole on his right, wide open for Ringrose, simply lacking the experience to know he should get in between the other defenders and allow Horn to move over to the wing. He leaves Ringrose completely unmarked as he catches the kick to put the scoreline out of reach if it wasn't already. Scotland, guys, they did decide to end up putting some points on the board, but simply put, the game was well over by the time Scotland got some points. As we can see, it's a simple defensive mismatch created by the two teams having a halfback on the wing. Henderson is marking Tui Pilotu, but is no winger in frame to defend against Ashman. We now see that he misses the tackle from side on, leading to a few freeze frames later where we can see a simple 2-on-1 against Conor Murray, who would attack from 9 in the opposition half, then defend from wing in his own half when he came on as a substitute. The 2-on-1 then allows for Scotland to get the space to score. Scotland, to be honest, guys, it just looked like for that whole second half they had honestly given up, and so I was really surprised they actually ended up scoring a second try. Their second try is created by Scotland pretty much copying the Irish shape for Lowe and Sheehan's tries. We see the blue axis for a hands down the line, we see two decoy runners, then Jones in midfield wanting distration. The line break is pretty much just created by Gibson, Park and Aki not communicating on who should tackle Jones before a 2-on-1 later happens, as Keenan has to choose about tackling either Smith or Price, who is the guy who goes over to get the final try of the game. You guys know me better than that. It's not the end of the video, we've got the full-time stats to review now. As we can see, Scotland finished the game off 54% possession, 51% territory, but as we start to get over and see the meters run the attacking stats, comparing them between the two teams, they pretty much dominated those stats. Scotland ran over 200 more meters than Ireland, they beat more defenders, they caught up with the clean breaks, getting 3 compared to the Irish 5, so that was more in the second half, and yet only 14 points to show for it. Scotland just simply waited too long to make those passes, and we can see through the offloads in comparison to Ireland's that they were drawing in defenders and they were getting that ball loose far too late, allowing the Irish defence to pick out on who was running and read the attack from the Scots. Scotland under Gregor Townsend, I feel, have really wasted a really good attacking generation that Scotland simply has not had since Townsend was a player himself, and I'm really wondering if Townsend's either going to get sacked or ends up resigning because of what's happened. Ireland were far more clinical when they did have the ball, and as we can see with the 7 turnovers to 3-1, they were definitely more clinical at the breakdown. The tackle stats, Scotland had a better tackle ratio, but with the Irish cover defence, do not let that deceive you. Ireland may have a lower tackle rate, but as I've explained in several videos before, it's that cover defence system that allows them to use the speed bumps before they pile bodies into the breakdown and win the turnovers. Goal kick success, perhaps a bit of a concern for Ireland maybe. The ruck success though, definitely nothing to worry about either. The cover defence also allows for them to just get so many players in there, just protect the ball at all costs, and Scotland on the other hand, they messed up big time in the ruck. They were giving away a fair few penalties, as we'll see soon before we discuss the fact that they got wrecked at the line out. Ireland's scrum, I don't think we can read into that too much, considering they did pretty well against South Africa. And Scotland, since they're out of the World Cup, we know they don't have the best props. I don't think we'll have to discuss this one too much either. But the big telling point of this match is that those opposition half penalties Scotland gave away, lots of them were at the breakdown. We've seen that before, and if we include Ollie Smith's yellow card, Scotland conceded twice as many penalties as the Irish. It's allowing Ireland to use the driving maul, of course, and and the line out is just such a weapon to set their attack up. France are no different, often using that set piece to just launch their attacking moves and their attacking structures pretty much straight away. I'm going to keep on saying that Andy Farrell is Ireland's greatest ever coach, because this is the team that has really learned from the mistakes that Joe Schmidt made last time. He kind of allowed the team to stagnate. He didn't change up the structures much. He allowed them to use the same old things for a whole year, believing they could still win the World Cup. Andy Farrell has realised that we've got to continue evolving as often as we can until the dying moments of this tournament. And I am really believing Ireland are about to make their way to the World Cup final. This is an all-time great team with plenty of experience, but the experience in Ireland wasn't just far ahead of Scotland in terms of caps. Scotland also shot themselves in the foot by simply getting their selections wrong. Why was Jack Dempsey, a former Wallaby who only debuted about 11 months ago, starting ahead of Matt Fagerson, who was the depth chart leader for number 8 throughout the World Cup cycle? Why was Ali Price only just restored to 9 after a year of Ben White starting in the jersey, with White, who had played the second most minutes at 9 throughout the World Cup cycle, not even on the bench? Stuart Hogg's retirement, you can't do too much about that, but Ollie Smith definitely could have played more minutes, as Blair Kinghorn sadly failed in HIA on his 50th test cap. Ireland, on the other hand, so many of those players just have that shared playing experience at club level with Leinster, creating far more cohesion, and that is why All Blacks fans should be deathly afraid for Ireland next week. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I really appreciate it. Just want to give one more thanks to my patrons and remind you guys to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Do share your thoughts down below in the comment section as well. The insightful ones, the good ones, they're always appreciated. I try to reply to as many comments as I get. But for now, I've got to go off and edit this video. So cheers for watching, guys, from Max.